Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm delighted to be up here with one of our clients, friends, and colleagues, Danny Matthews from the Co-op. And Danny is going to be sharing with us today how he particularly solved a challenge. And at Capp, we love a challenge. For those of you who are familiar with Capp, you'll know that we are a talent technology organisation who specialise in strengths-based assessment. That assessment can be used for either selection for recruitment, development, or more increasingly, transformation. We're really, really proud of some of the challenges that we face, and we're also really, really proud of the innovation that we make. I know that some of you in the room operate in the tech space, and we know that some of the challenges that are faced by tech recruiters require real innovation. You may know of us, I'm sorry, I can't see that. Oh, I can look this way, can't I? Yeah. You may know of us through virtual reality. We pioneered virtual reality assessment 2 years ago, and we've got quite a lot of data now to support how that's working really well. It's predominantly been taken up by the financial services and technology organisations, but we'd love to talk to any of you who would like to talk to us about that particular area. And that was a challenge we took up because we felt as though we did need to do something a bit different in the marketplace and still use strengths-based assessment. So how we measure a strength at Capp is by looking at something that you do well, something that energizes you, something that really engages you and enables you to stay at work later than 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, and that you find the time to use. And that strength could be behavioral, or it could be a cognitive strength as well. And Danny's going to be talking to us about assessment in cognitive strengths. The challenge that we had presented to us by Danny was born out of a relationship that started with the Co-op more widely in funeral care, where we had very interesting challenges to face in terms of assessing what made somebody successful in that particular area. And in that particular area, what we conducted was a strengths analysis, where we looked at what it took to be successful in those roles. And over the more than 100 years that that business has been in place, the challenges have changed. That world is much more complex now, whereas it used to be quite simple that you had to be a caring individual. Now there are lots of different challenges. Individuals have to be resilient, they have to show empathy, respect, and they have to have a customer service orientation. So we were able to put together a strengths profile to recruit into that really unique area of co-op funeral care. And that was fantastic. Everyone at Capp, all the big brainy people, came up with these ideas, and we looked at how we could solve that particular problem, challenge. And then Danny joined Co-op, and he came to us with a new challenge. And he's going to talk to you now about that challenge. And I hope that if some of you have got similar challenges, that you can learn from the experiences that Danny's been through and really made a difference in just less than a year. It was a year ago that he came to us with this challenge. So I'm going to hand over to Danny now to talk through that area.
Thank you very much. So just a brief introduction. God, that's not a good start. Introduction to myself. Danny Matthews, Apprenticeship Recruitment Manager at the Co-op, working across all of our business areas, primarily within food, but across insurance, logistics, and I guess on an advisory level in some of those other pieces as well. I've been in the role for around about 12 months, previous history in graduate and student recruitment over at Lidl. And my role is to build, pretty much from scratch, the apprenticeship resourcing function within Co-op. Rather topical at the moment, obviously with the levy coming in 2017, and an industry from a recruitment perspective which is very much in its infancy. Lots of learnings that we can take from the student recruitment market at graduate level and most certainly in that school leaver piece, but lots of challenges thrown up by the government. functional skills being one of them, which I'll come on to in a minute. But just to set the scene a little bit around apprenticeships at the Co-op. So we have an apprenticeship strategy. That strategy is pretty straightforward. It's about introducing new candidates, new colleagues into our organisation to future-proof the Co-op across all of our business areas. It's about increasing the diversity and inclusivity of our workforce through apprenticeships, which absolutely sit at the heart of D&I. And importantly, as an organisation which is owned by its members, it's about serving our communities that we work within. So be that communities surrounding our food stores, communities surrounding Manchester, online communities that we operate in as well. It's about supporting our community, and apprenticeships absolutely allows an organisation to achieve those. But it's not easy. And our ambition, I guess, is to have 1,000 apprentices on programme at any one time. I'm pleased to announce that as of 2 weeks ago, we actually made the 1,000, which is fantastic. And to keep that 1,000 on programme at any one time, it's roughly around 600 to 700 recruits every single year across all of our business areas. Interestingly, and to touch onto the funeral care side of things, the funeral care organisation recruits the majority of our apprentices, with the oldest apprentice we have in our organisation being 74, ironically in funeral care, and our youngest apprentice being in our insurance business as well, which is 16 years old and 3 months. So a massive age range. And just to, I'd like to keep something in mind. Apprenticeships aren't just for young people, and that's really, really important, and something which isn't quite coming through in the market yet. And something which is really close to my heart. I think it's really important that we acknowledge the school leaver and college leaver market, but importantly, we look beyond that to genuinely make an impact within the communities that we work within. But that's all well and good, and that strategy is in place, and that's a very ambitious target to hit. But it's really important that we recruit the right people onto the right programme. And part of the recruitment process that we've worked with Capp on to make it more efficient, to make it more effective, to make it more candidate-focused, is the functional skills assessment. So very briefly, for those who don't know, functional skills are maths, English, and IT qualifications set by the government. And there's 5 grade levels, from entry level 3 to functional skills level 2. To put it into perspective, functional skills level 2 is equivalent to a C at GCSE. I think it's really important to call out at this stage as well that cognitive strength is absolutely within that functional skills area, and that's why we've worked with Capp to build an assessment tool which allows us to test those functional skill abilities at the right level. So currently they're a government initiative, and they're only a requirement within England. However, we do utilise our assessment across Scotland and Wales as well. And I just want to hang on that final point around how they are currently assessed. So interestingly, functional skills are actually assessed. They're either assessed by looking for certificates. So just out of interest, show of hands, how many of you would absolutely, hand on heart, be able to find your GCSE certificates right now? Not many of you at all. So that's what I ask for when I'm talking about looking for certificates, grade G or C or above. And importantly, the alternative is to assess when a colleague or an apprentice joins an apprenticeship program via the learning provider. Now, both of them clearly come with two massive risks and massive holes, really, in any recruitment process. The latter, around assessing when they join the program, do you really want to spend an hour, maybe half a day, maybe a day of an assessment centre of your hiring manager's precious time, only to find out that the candidate can't join the program because they don't have functional skills at a required level? Definitely not. Clearly, that's not a great candidate experience in any perspective. And I think from a D&I point of view, and we just bring ourselves back to that apprenticeship strategy of the co-op, asking for certificates, grade GLC or above, is, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous, personal opinion. From a D&I perspective, we have had massive challenges with asking for that proof of qualification. One of them is around international colleagues, people from outside of the European Union, who have a qualification in maths or English, but genuinely can't find it, or it's not eligible in this country. The other one is around non-academic people, so candidates who never pursued an academic career, via further education or via university. It's a massive barrier for those individuals. And interestingly, age is one of them as well. There is a statistic which states that if you're over the age of 27, which I'm guessing the majority of us are in the room here, no offense intended, you have a 75% chance of actually getting your certificates from school or college, which I find really, really interesting. And we've had an issue, not massive, but significant enough this year, where we've had a number of older people who, older people, anyone over the age of 27, who have struggled to obtain their functional skills certificates and therefore prove that they have the qualification. They might know, they definitely know they have that level, but they just can't prove it. And unfortunately, one of the barriers put in place from assessing by exemption is exactly that: they can't join the program unless you put them through some form of assessment. So leading on quite nicely, we wanted to make sure that we were creating a process back about kind of 11, 12 months ago that was suitable and created a level playing field. And I think that's really important, that we create an opportunity for all individuals who want to join our apprenticeships, irrespective of academic background, irrespective of their schooling education, which allowed us to assess their cognitive strengths via functional skills, so in the right setting, so that it would be recognised to a point by our learning providers, but importantly, make sure that we're providing an opportunity for all people to apply and go through our process. So that's what I'm here to talk about. Before today, when we first started the process, the challenge that we really set ourselves is about creating an efficient, candidate-friendly process which ensures access and inclusivity in all of the opportunities that we offer, and here's where we really started. So very simple. It's not groundbreaking, this process. I'm not going to stand here and say that it is, but candidates would apply. They would go through the functional skills assessment, which isn't Capp's. Let me just get that clear before we move on. That is set by the learning provider. They would go through video interview, and then offer a very straightforward process. We built this process with limited time, limited resource, and a lot of pressure from our organisation to deliver a crazy number of hires in a 3 to 4 month period. We used a learning providers tool, which was at zero cost, which is fantastic, and it was supported by the learning providers. But it wasn't the most candidate-friendly, and most certainly is not the most business-friendly process that we had in there as well. So just to call out some of those experiences that candidates would have had. So it's a learning providers tool. 40 minutes a test, 40 minutes for maths and 40 minutes for English. And just to bring to attention, that's 40 minutes initially. If a candidate clicked the wrong button in the test, it would mean that would have to do it on and on and on. To the point, to give an example, we actually had a candidate last year who did a whole test for a weekend. For a whole weekend. I mean, I presume they slept and ate at some point in time. But they genuinely did the test for the whole weekend. And that's where we had to bring this tool in. We had no choice. We had limited time and resource, but clearly it's not the right product. From a business perspective, 7 days end to end. So that's 7 days from knowing that we needed to send the candidate the test to the test results coming back into us. And that went from co-op to our learning provider, to their provider, to the candidate, and then the other way around. So 6 human touch points, massively, massively manual. I had an interesting conversation earlier on today, and that process is something which some organisations are having to use, and I've been through the pain of that. I've pulled the spreadsheets myself. Lots of late nights, but if anyone wants to talk to me about that afterwards, please feel free to do so. But I think the two really important things for me, from a business point of view, we were losing 50% of our pipeline just through that test, and most importantly, candidates weren't getting any feedback. They weren't learning where they were going wrong, where their development areas might be. So clearly that's not the right tool to use. So we looked around the market. Most companies would ask for qualifications, and I think that's where, when I go back to that space of apprenticeships aren't just for young people. If you're 16, 17, chances are you probably got your qualification certificates. Happy days, you can submit them. If you don't meet the benchmark, then sorry, thanks very much, apply for another company. Clearly not a great message, and not encouraging a wider range of applicants. Some would use numerical and verbal reasoning assessments. In my opinion, not right for this space. It's a different type of maths, it's a different type of English. And some companies took the risk that the candidate would get to the end of the process and be chopped, for want of a better phrase. So we approached Capp to help us build a tool. Capp works with another organisation, a couple of other organisations on a functional skills assessment, but not necessarily in the apprenticeship space. What they could provide us with was cognitive strength and a functional skill setting, and crucially, the two standout elements of this tool and the way that we approached this assessment was that we needed efficiencies in technology. So we needed to make sure that 6 human touch points become as close to 0 as possible. And importantly, that we enhance that candidate experience. 1 hour and 20-minute test is absolutely ridiculous. Not having feedback when they've fallen down at that hurdle is again not a great opportunity. So we had a decision to make. We went with Capp, thankfully, and we've seen some fantastic benefits really from that piece. But the decision to go with Capp was, in my opinion, quite an easy one. It provided us multi-platform use. It was contextualized to the co-op, and I'll show you an example of some of the questions which really add a lot of value to that candidate journey to understand the variation that we have within our organization. It was very level assessment, so what I mean by that is we can assess at both functional skills level 2, cognitive strength level 2, and importantly at level 1 as well, for each individual different apprenticeship standard. 20 minutes in total, amazing. When it flicks between maths into English and maths into English, covers all of the curriculum areas that we would want it to do. It's fully integrated into our ATS, so it's purely a case of automated sending of the link and therefore instructions. And absolutely importantly, it provided constructive development for the candidate. So the report that comes out the other end to the candidate is it breaks down curriculum and it says, hey, well, here's where you are really strong and here's where you can improve and here's how you can improve, which I think is a really, really fantastic tool, particularly in the apprenticeship arena. A couple of example questions. I'm not sure if you can really see them from here, but it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's not, it's nothing overly flashy, but at the end of the day, it gets the job done, and it's contextualized to the co-op. So you can see there's an example around a funeral home, and there's an example there around a co-op store as well. So something which was quick, which was quite snappy, which was relatively easy for a candidate to follow was really, really crucial. And embedding the test itself, and once we purchased the test and bought into that product and built the test in effect, was relatively straightforward from a recruitment perspective. I mean, when you look at the benefits that we could have gained, and I'll come on to them in a minute, it was a no-brainer. But from a business point of view, it was a bit more difficult. Interestingly, from L&D, we were moving away from a learning providers test, which was the holy grail of assessments, but it wasn't. We actually approached that stakeholder challenge probably not in the right way, but we went straight to the learning provider and asked for their opinions on it. Essentially, we were cutting probably about 3 hours a week of work from themselves, having to send things on and modify spreadsheets. Why wouldn't they? So we could enable them to focus on their learning delivery, which was absolutely imperative and essentially what we pay via the levy for them to deliver. But importantly, I think now that we're reflecting on where we are, and we've had a number of candidates go through the test across a range of different programs, so not just within level 2 entry level. In our food stores, we've had colleagues who are going for our degree program go through it, which is fantastic, and importantly as well, anywhere in between. So around about 7 different programs we've put candidates through this assessment, and some of the benefits. When I was preparing for this presentation and I was digesting some of that detail is phenomenal. So purely by implementing the test, we've reduced our cost of recruiting or processing a candidate at that point in time by 66%. That's phenomenal. Yes, okay, the true investment realization will not come in 1 year, and that will take a number of years, and I think that's always important when you invest in an online assessment tool. It's not going to happen tomorrow, the true investment. We've shaved 3 days off the time to hire, which is fantastic, particularly in a very competitive landscape of apprenticeship recruitment. We've reduced the candidate testing time by an hour, which can only be great for that candidate experience, and that will no doubt link to the increase of 30% completion rate. So from going to lose nearly 50% of our entire pipeline to now only losing circa 20% is a fantastic addition to our process. So what next? Busy year, so probably a holiday. I'm actually on holiday this week, but probably another one at the end of the year. So next for us, data analysis and feedback. So we need to really deep dive into those results and where we are from a strengths assessment perspective. Improvements to be made to the report. Let's make it better. I think the other piece to think about there as well is, how can we build on what we've got with Capp? How can we make sure that we're potentially integrating some of those behavioural strengths into that test as well as a combined assessment. We're going to put some thinking around the process development to include that certificate piece. If we do have a 16, 17, 18, if you've got your certificates, you're old, apply for our program, that we're not putting them through an unnecessary stage of the process. And really, really interesting and very excitingly, we're actually introducing pre-apprenticeship programs. Now, this is, for those of you who don't know what pre-apprenticeship program is, this is essentially the co-op paying for a candidate to get the qualification at functional skills level 2 or level 1, be whatever the program requires. So we're actually giving them the qualification outside of the co-op. Yes, okay, we want them to join our program and clearly, go on to do great things within the co-op. But part of that supporting our communities piece, part of increasing our social mobility as an organisation and opening up the roles is about saying actually at this time you don't meet those requirements, but rather than saying thanks very much, try again next year with nothing in between, we're actually going to give them the qualification that they need to join the apprenticeship program, and therefore pretty much bypass that functional skills test stage to give people who might not have that academic background, who might not have that academic focus, the right entry into apprenticeship opportunities across the business. So that's everything for myself. Please feel free to grab me about functional skills or apprenticeship recruitment or in general. I don't work for the Institute for Apprenticeships, I don't know everything, but I'll give it a go.
Thank you very much, Danny. And if anybody wants to have a look at the assessment, it's on the iPads that are over there, if anybody's interested. I think what Danny's demonstrated there is the dedication and commitment that he's put in to make a difference, giving something back, making things better, and really doing those sorts of activities. What that changes for diversity and inclusion is phenomenal. So it's something that happens at the front end that really widens what's coming in, and really helping with those statistics as well, even though that's not the primary focus. The primary focus in this case was all around efficiency. So does anybody have any questions? Do we have time for questions? Or, yeah.